I don't claim to have it all figured out, so I asked my community on Facebook for their recommendations for fathers, and I've got 9 things that I'm going to share with you today. Welcome to Fathering Our Future, the podcast for dads. I'm Anthony Vandergriff, and I'm not the perfect dad, but every day I am trying to be better. I don't have it all figured out. I know that, and I think it's wonderful when people come together and share things that they have learned. They share advice that they have received with other people, because when we work together, that's how we grow and actually become better. We can't do that on our own. So I'm going to fill you in on what the community had to say that dads really need to know. If you're a dad who wants to embrace your God-given mission, make sure you subscribe to Fathering Our Future wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also get more content on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you want even more than that, then head over to www.fatheringourfuture.com. Community is a wonderful thing, and I've talked about it a lot. There's so many benefits that we reap from community and benefits that we get to give when we are a part of a community. So if you don't have dads that you are friends with, that you wouldn't say that you're in a community with, find some dads and start forming community, because you're going to be able to bless them and they're going to be able to bless you. And what we're doing, whether we acknowledge it or not, is we are fathering our future. The way that I raise my kids is going to have an impact not only in their life, but in the lives of other people. Just a simple demonstration of that. And this is for everyone across the board. If I raise my kid to be self-centered and to sit and be self-serving, when he meets other people, he's probably not going to care about them. He's probably going to give someone a reason to have a bad day. And I don't want that, because I don't want people to have a bad day. I want people to prosper. I want people to be happy. So I teach my kid to think about other people. So my kids will be the ones who grow up, and even if they're having a bad day, when they're coming face to face with someone else, they're going to smile. They're going to ask them how they're doing. They're going to greet them. They're going to acknowledge them, and they're going to let them know, hey, people see you. You have value and you're important. My kids are going to go out into the world and make people feel seen. And it might just be on a very small level, but by me teaching my kids to value other people and them doing something simple as smiling at someone else, that is going to change someone's outlook for the day. And that's going to have a positive impact. So what we do as dads, it doesn't stick with just us. It doesn't stick with just those inside of our home, inside of our 4 walls. It goes out and it blesses other people. We are fathering our future, and we ought to be mindful of that, because when we're mindful of that, we can be intentional about it. I don't want to be absent-minded when it comes to what I'm doing with my kids. I don't want to be disconnected and disengaged and just leave it up to chance to how they turn out. I want to be proactive and I want to be intentional. And I know you do too. So if we're going to father our future, our collective future, then collectively, I think we should work on this. When we work on this together, this is really how we father our future. So I reached out to some people. My Facebook community, it consists of about 10,000 people at this point, and I didn't get 10,000 responses, but I did get some good comments, and I pulled 9 of the tips that I got from my Facebook community that I thought were worth sharing. One of them is a little bit comedic, and I will start with this one because this one's really profound. And the tip was, make sure you buy the same type of sippy cups. Now, if you have kids, you already know. You've already connected the dots, and that's all I had to say. But if you have young kids and they're still being bottle fed, or mom still feeds them, and they're not to sippy cup stage yet, hear me out. Whenever it comes time for you to have sippy cups, you're probably going to see some branded with superheroes, branded with movie characters and TV characters that your kid likes. You're probably going to have a theme that you've used for your nursery. For us, with our firstborn, it was dinosaurs. So we looked for dinosaur cups and dinosaur sippy cups, and that's what we wanted him to have. But there's so many different styles. Word to the wise. Make sure you buy the same style, because it is a little bit remarkable how much space those stupid sippy cups can take up over time. And it's not even a lot of time, but you buy all of these different style of cups. Nothing ever goes together. You're in this mass race to try and figure out where the right pieces to the right sippy cup are, and it's chaotic. So do yourself a favor and buy the same style. And I would recommend even buying multiple of the same sippy cup, because when your kids grow up and you start to have more kids, in my case, my kids are 6, 4, and 2 right now. At 6, 4, and 2, they sometimes share sippy cups. And we could have dodged a few arguments and a few fallouts if we had just bought the same sippy cups and everyone had the same cup. It even happens with adult cups, big cups. When the kids get those, one of the kids will get upset because theirs is different than the other two. Just buy the same style sippy cup. This is just profound wisdom. It's really going to help you. Now, the other one's a little more serious, but I would seriously consider the one I just told you. The next one, be engaged, not just there. And this is something that I've talked about a lot on the podcast. I talked about it recently with the prodigal son, the father of the prodigal son. I think it's one thing for us to be there, and it's better than nothing. If all you are is there and you're just present and you're just a body in the house where your kids are, believe it or not, there's still a lot of benefits that come from that. But why stop at just a little? When you can be engaged and you can invest into your kids, one, you're going to reap so much from that, because you're going to experience love on a totally different level. Love that you're not worthy of, that you're not deserving of, yet it's given to you anyway, off of nothing at all other than who you are. It's the love that God gives us. We get that same similar love from our kids just because of who we are. That's why they love us. And that's remarkable to reap as a father. And you get that when you are engaged with them, when you are actually working with them and you are living life with them. It's a great tip. Don't just be present, but be involved in what your kids are doing. Patience was the third tip given. Be patient. Now, you can take this a couple of ways. You can be patient as a father, because we like instant gratification. We like what we want when we want it. We want it now. We're like the little girl on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We want the whole world and we want it now. Everything that we desire in life, we want it now. That's how we operate. That's just culturally how we function. And we don't do well with waiting, but we have to learn to be patient, because there are plenty of things that you will teach your kids that they will not actually appreciate until they are old enough and in the right context of life to actually appreciate it. You are sowing wisdom into your kids. Be patient for the reward that comes from it. You have to learn to wait. And you also have to apply patience with your kids in your everyday dealings with them. Kids make mistakes and kids take time to learn. And if you're honest with yourself, you know that you do too. We don't just always figure everything out the first time we do it. It takes a lot of trial and error. And your kids are the same way. Your kids are going to make mistakes. Your kids are going to need you to tell them the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's going to happen. So learn to be patient with your kids. Great tip. Here's another one. Compliment them more than telling them to do better. I think this one is a wonderful piece of advice for fathers, because it's very easy for us in this perfectionist society that we live in. We can go on social media and we can look at pictures of people and they've been edited and they've been filtered, but we forget that. We just see perfection, what appears to be perfection. And we long for that. We desire that. We see people who apparently have it all together. They have all of this money, all of these nice things. They live this life of absolute luxury. We see what we define as perfection and we strive for it. We want it. We don't want mistakes. We don't plan to fail. We just plan to succeed. And it's so easy for us with our kids to place that same personal expectation on them. And it's very easy to nitpick at our kids. We are almost wired to see the bad before we see the good. This is why you're more likely to get a review that's negative than positive. You have to be really good to get a positive review, or you just have to be with the right people. But if someone has a bad experience out to eat, they're going to tell the manager. They're going to leave a review on Yelp or Google or wherever else. They're going to let the world know, hey, I went to this place and they suck. And I just want you to know, you are more likely to get negative feedback than positive feedback. That's just, for whatever reason, how people seem to function. We see the bad. It's very easy for us to see the bad. Don't do that with your kids. Compliment them more than you tell them to do better. See the good in what they're doing. I think that this is the right way to go about leadership in general. There are times you have to identify the bad, but make sure that you are promoting the good way more than you have to do that. I even think about Jesus. He came not to condemn the world. He didn't come to tell everyone this is wrong and that's a sin and you should not be doing that. That's not why he came. He didn't come to condemn, but he came to save. He came to lead. He came to guide. And as fathers, that's what we're doing. We are leaders to our children. So compliment them more. Teach yourself to see the good and help them to see the good too, and expound on the good that your kids do. Wonderful tip. Next tip, be a good listener. Now, I talk about communication a lot. Communication is one of those, call them 4 pillars or 4 components that I've tried to focus on throughout 2023: communication, grace, personal integrity, and faith. Communication is huge. And you don't just do it once and you're done. It's one of those things that you get better at over time and that you continue to do. You have to talk to your kids. You have to share what you're thinking, what you've gone through, what you've experienced, how you're handling things. As you're open and transparent and vulnerable with your kids, they see that you view them as someone who is trustworthy. And they reciprocate that back to you. They feel comfortable talking to you because you've expressed comfort in talking to them. And so what happens with communication is you start to build trust. And trust is the foundation for relationship. And so the more you communicate, the more trust you establish. And the stronger that trust is, the greater that relationship can be built and the greater it can be nurtured and the greater it can grow. But here's the thing with communication. It's not just about talking. It's not just about you saying what you want to say, when you want to say it, however you want to say it. That's not all that goes into communication. The other side of communication, at least the other half of it, might even be more important than actually speaking, is listening. If you're not listening to your kids, you're not going to be able to speak to the things that they actually need you to speak to. If they're going through something and they are talking to you and they're pouring their heart out and they're trying to tell you what they feel and how they're dealing with things, but you're not listening to them because you think you already know the answer to the problem that they're facing. So you wait till they stop talking and then you just give your advice. That's kind of like buying a gift for someone that you think is really cool, but they don't care about it. Yeah, I like this and I like that. And anyone should like these things because if I like it, it's got to be great, right? So I will buy this gift for this person, even though I've never seen them have anything like this or talk about this. It's a wonderful gift and they will appreciate it. It's kind of the same thing when you don't listen to your kid, but you give them advice. By listening to your kid, you have the opportunity to tailor make this advice and this wisdom for them. You've got to shut up from time to time and listen to them and then use what you hear to speak. So be a good listener. The next tip was stay humble. I think that this one's really important. And I think this can sometimes be a struggle for us as fathers because, one, as men, we want to be triumphant. We want to be at the top. We want to be strong. We want to be the best. We just have this intrinsic desire for victory. We want to be great. It's inside of us. And when we start to achieve particular components of what we are categorizing as success or greatness, it's very easy for that to get to our head. It's very easy for us as fathers to think we know better, we know best, and sometimes we start to think that we know it all. And we really don't, because we're still learning through this life just as our kids are learning. We're further ahead, and so we have better advice and wisdom to give and to share with our kids. But just because it's better advice and better wisdom doesn't mean that it is always right or always the best advice and wisdom to give to our kids. So check yourself from time to time. This kind of goes back to being the good listener. You might want to hear your kid out. You might want to hear their case before you think, I've got this. I already know what they need. Have some humility about yourself, especially when your kids get older. I've seen this happen. Your kids get older and you still think, I'm the dad. I've lived longer, got more experience. I've done more. I've been there, done that, have way more t-shirts than they do. They need to hear me out. They need my wisdom on this because I'm smarter. Just the way that it goes. I've been around longer. If you have that mentality, you're probably not going to have listening ears from your kids, especially when they're adults, because the reality is, as we grow up, as we enter into adulthood, we learn things. We have new experiences. We get more engaged with the culture sometimes. And there's plenty that I know that I could teach my parents. And the same is true generation after generation. Our kids grow up, they gain their unique experiences, they learn new things, and at the rate at which knowledge is expanding, it would be foolish for us to think that our kids learning what they learn won't ever surpass us in what they actually know. So have some humility and go back to that last point and have some listening ears. Be a good listener to your kids, because if you are humble, you're more likely to learn. And I think you'll be proud if you learn something from your kid. I think you'll be proud that you raised them in a way to where they value and appreciate education and growing and personally developing. And then they get to share what they've learned and how they've grown with you and help you in the process. This wonderful circle of reciprocity, knowledge going from you to them and then back to you again. It's a wonderful thing. So stay humble. Love unconditionally. This is one that I think would be easier and something that we would be more willing to accept. But sometimes we struggle with it. Sometimes we put parameters around our love. That if our kid is not doing what we raised them to do, we're going to write them off. We're not going to give them that love. We have conditions. And that's not how we need to love, especially as Christian fathers. We are beneficiaries of unconditional love at every moment of our existence. God loves us unconditionally. When we weren't even doing things right or acknowledging God, He died for us. He gave Himself in the greatest act of love for us. We didn't think about God. We didn't care about God. We didn't love God, but He loved us so much that He did that. That's unconditional love. Now, I don't understand, and I know people who have done this. I don't understand how you can profess to be a Christian, have a kid that chooses to do something that you don't advise them to do. And the instance that I'm talking about, they didn't do anything horrible. It's not like they went out and just started living in the most vile way that they could. They just had a disagreement. But because their kid disagreed with their advice, they wrote them off. Their kid is still a Christian. Their kid still has a family, goes to church, tries to be a wonderful person, but they were written off by their parents because they didn't listen to their advice on this one particular thing. Kind of sounds like the man who was forgiven of a great debt and then couldn't forgive someone else of a lesser debt. I don't think you want the same outcome as that person got. So love your kids unconditionally. And I saved this one for last. This is number 9. Err on the side of mercy. And I think this is so good for us to remember. Your kids are going to make mistakes, but just because they make mistakes doesn't mean that they are a mistake. Your kid will occasionally do things that are bad, but just because they do something that is bad, it doesn't mean that they are bad. Don't treat them like a criminal. Don't treat them like this wicked person. Don't treat them like the scum of the earth because they make a mistake, because they do something that they should not have done. Maybe it was a mistake and completely accidental. Maybe it's a mistake, but it was intentional when they actually did whatever they did. But remember, you raised them. They're a product of you and what you put into them and your influence. Remember that. You know how you raise your kids. You know that your baby, whether they're an adult now or not, they're still your baby. You remember them when they were small enough to be in your arms. You know that they're not evil. So don't treat them that way. Give your kids the benefit of the doubt. And rather than making mistakes on the side of extreme and harsh discipline, err on the side of mercy. Err on the side of, you know what? Maybe I gave them too much grace with that act or that mistake that they made. But I don't know that too much grace is going to do more damage than too much punishment. You can weigh that one out for yourself. But I thought that was a wonderful piece of advice. Err on the side of mercy. Those are the 9 tips that I got from the Facebook community that I thought were worth sharing, just in case you didn't see the post. But if you do want to be up to date with all the posts that go out every day on the Fathering Our Future social media pages, make sure that you find Fathering Our Future. It's just search for the name Fathering Our Future on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and you can keep up to date with all the videos, all the posts, all the reels that get posted. You can also subscribe to the website, fatheringourfuture.com, and you can get notified anytime that there is a blog post or any sort of a post. You can stay up to date. You can even donate to help Fathering Our Future at the website if you'd like to do that too. There's a little donate button right at the top. You can do that. You can also find out about the book that I wrote, Cut the Crap, Direct Tips for Becoming a Dad. Great gift if you know someone who's becoming a new dad or someone who is early on in fatherhood. Honestly, I think any dad could benefit from the tips in this book. Sometimes we need a good refresher from time to time. And the 6 things that I point out in that book are really good for us to stay mindful of and to be reminded of. So stay up to date with everything that's going on with Fathering Our Future. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, wherever you listen to podcasts. Search for Fathering Our Future on social media. Again, I'm only on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, but there's a lot you can get there. And then one more time, the website, www.fatheringourfuture.com. Check it out, subscribe to the website, and then you'll get all the blog posts. You'll get everything notified to you, and you can keep up to date with everything that's going on. You can even contribute. You can leave your comments. You can send your questions. You can do that at fatheringourfuture@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to engage with you. And so find Fathering Our Future. I told you where to do it. Now it's just up to you to make it happen. Those are the 9 things I want you to take with you one more time. I'll run through them. The little funny one, but so good, is make sure you buy the same type of sippy cups. Be engaged, not just present. Be patient. Learn patience. Compliment them more than telling them to do better. Be a good listener. Stay humble. Love them unconditionally. And err on the side of mercy. Well, thank you so much for being with me. This is Fathering Our Future, the podcast for dads. I'm Anthony Vandegrift, and I hope you will join me next time. Thank you again for listening to Fathering Our Future. If this episode has served you or you believe it will serve another dad in the future, make sure that you leave a like, a comment, a review, or share this so that it can reach another dad. And so that you don't miss out on another episode, make sure you subscribe to Fathering Our Future wherever you listen to podcasts. And again, for more great content, head over to www.fatheringourfuture.com.